president of the African American Economic Recovery Think Tank. Today we have, who's at the lovely home of Miss Niki Brunson, political candidate for District 7. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. Evening, morning.
Yes. So good.
I appreciate being here. I'm a native of Jacksonville and former apathetic voter that got frustrated with the options for District 7 and decided to become more engaged with the political atmosphere here. And the more engaged I became, the more frightened I became about what my future was going to be like in Jacksonville. And I decided in August that if I wanted a leader that I could respect, then I probably needed to run.
How long you been living in the area that you live in?
In Springfield, my grandmother bought this house in 1974. She was a part of the integration of the neighborhood.
And we talking Springfield, Jacksonville, Florida?
Mm.
Yes. And you're running for District 7?
District 7.
And that covers, tell us a little about the area, how many people are in the area?
District 7 has 14 precincts, and those 14 precincts have about, I'm going to say about 40,000 voters. District 7 has expanded quite, just cover the urban core based on, and the easternmost section of the downtown area, the east side, and it expanded up to about where the railroad tracks were, where the old, just before you get to the old zoo.
Right.
And now it actually covers the zoo, it opens up, and it also covers Ocean Way, some parts of Densmore, Pecan Park, and the new development that we have all the way out to the northern boundary. So the district has become, once we fought for a budget for economic development and expansion and infrastructure, and now we share a budget. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward to see how those residents come together and come up with a comprehensive plan to bring the district back economically.
Yes, sir. So what the median income in your area?
Median income runs about $35,000, oddly. Although we have some of the richest residents living in our Ocean Way area, but that area is just now opening up in the last 20 years. Development has expanded out there, including Eastport and several medium range housing developments and schools as well.
And so your area cover most of North Jacksonville?
Mostly North Jacksonville.
Yes.
And north and I guess the east side of the St. Johns River.
Tell me what. Sorry about that. Tell me, what is your number one concern about your community?
Quality of life. The expansion of improving quality of life experiences in Jacksonville. As a lifelong resident, I have actually experienced in this neighborhood a decline in my quality of life. Although my income has been very expansive, my experience has declined and diminished greatly. As a child, I don't remember hearing gunshots ring out night after night, and now we've got 20 and 30 rounds coming from several different pistols on a nightly basis, and it's coming from all directions now. Job opportunities on the east side, we were very used to industries being very close, and lots of the workers lived in the neighborhood and walked back and forth to work. So there wasn't a great necessity for public transportation for the residents on the east side because they were pretty self-contained in the 70s as a child, even after the riots. But I have watched as unemployment has climbed in the 70s to 28%, and people exclaimed how horrific that sounded. And those same residents suffer from 66% unemployment today. So that shows a disconnect in leadership. It certainly shows a disconnect in the residents amplifying their needs to our leadership. And moving forward, I think we've got to take more consideration for the people that have been there, for the people that have struggled and suffered as a result of neglect and mismanagement of budgets in our past, and move us forward. We basically have to raise our bottom line residents because they are what make our bottom line real. Jacksonville is a business.
Right. And now we talking about with the you say up to what, 60, a little over 60%.
At a height in 2012,
precincts in your area.
Yes, certain precincts in our area. We've got about 20,000 residents that make up Health Zone 1, and those residents suffer from the worst health conditions in the city. They suffer from the worst crime and safety statistics in the city. They have the worst unemployment record, and the median family income is actually less than half of the rest of the city. So this is a concentration of what our worst citizenship looks like, and then those residents give service to most of our transient community in the city. So we've got the worst supporting the worst,
Well,
as far as quality of life
well, question on the
opportunities.
yes. Question I have for you is, but since 1964, Civil Rights Act, affirmative action, all those other things that have been added to different programs to increase the quality of life in the African American community, why hasn't anything changed?
This is an incredible question because I've always considered myself an heir to the 5-year strategy plan of the Civil Rights Movement being born in 1969. So I've never had a segregated day of education. I've never been denied access to things in public. My grandmother and I shopped alongside every race in downtown Jacksonville, and in my experience, it was a free and enjoyable experience for the most part. So it surprises me as I ebb into the second half of what I consider my life here in Jacksonville, how concerned I am about the racial imbalance and the number of opportunities that people are still not being given access to. Budget talks and budget movement that are leaving citizens that have been here 4 and 5 generations not receiving infrastructure support that supports economic redevelopment in areas that they know have been neglected for 40 years. So it's a little disheartening to me as we celebrate 50 years of the Civil Rights Movement to find that a citizen that was given every opportunity by the Civil Rights Movement to now fear that my quality of life is going to be so greatly impacted by the same things that led us to the necessity for a Civil Rights Act. But I think that starts with disengaged leadership. And
Are you talking about in the African American community or government?
I think that the African American community oftentimes is systematic of what are some of our worst conditions as an American community. And I think that sometimes legislatively there is support for keeping those numbers in certain areas. I know that there is a particular area in Jacksonville that for the last 40 years has been responsible for us receiving maybe 60% of federal funding based on the numbers that come out of this neighborhood. So there is a certain type of capitalization on the African American condition not improving. And I think as a community we have become so apathetic to participating in a system that we don't feel actually wants us to thrive in that system. I participated in that level of apathy where I withdrew from participating with my vote. I didn't attend city hall meetings. I basically disconnected from the process, and now I find myself struggling for some security that in 40 years I still won't be fighting a civil rights battle.
Yeah, let me ask you this question though. You mentioned that there have been initiative programs or set aside, whatever you want to call it, available to the African American community. Well, what have stopped the African American from applying for those opportunities and taking advantage of them?
I think adequate leadership.
You talking about the black community?
For our African American leadership that has been raised up as a result of the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement and our advances as a community, I think that the leadership has been disconnected with the necessity for not only going out and learning how the system works, but bringing that information back and then disseminating it in a manner that the residents that are going to be impacted by decisions that are going to be made legislatively understand how those decisions are impacting us, where the money is, how to apply for that money, how to even be prepared for the money when it comes. I consider myself to be fairly intelligent, and I've paid for workshops where I was able to advance myself in 3 or 4 hours with knowledge when it was given to me in the right way. Surely, town hall meetings, which we don't have in the community, the only time they ever invite us out is when they've got a consultant down here that just wants to fine tune an idea that they already have that they've been marketing across the country. So the disengaged citizenship combined with disengaged leadership is leading us, has led us to where we are now, where we've got 80% voter apathy, 65% prison recidivism. So for those citizens that could be registered voters, we got 65% of them that can't be registered voters because in Florida they don't give you your rights back. So we're keeping ourselves the underdog with some of the choices that we're making socially as a community, whether those choices are being made individually or collectively. Again, it starts with leadership though. Inadequate leadership, a more adequate leadership should have conveyed to the residents how important it was to remain engaged, especially after the Civil Rights Act was signed. Because words on paper are not actions.
Okay. Yeah, so what are you going to do to change this pathology that's in the African American community? Not only in the African American community, but in this country, period. But just staying with the African American community, what are you going to do, or what are your plans once you become elected for District 7? Your first steps. Name a couple of your first steps.
Well, I started in 2013 by amplifying my voice. Again, as an apathetic voter, I have had many conversations over many cookouts and many dinner parties about how horrible our government is and how our experience is decreasing. Our quality of life experience is decreasing. So I have creating my life as a model of citizenship. Just a model, not the model. A person that takes a few times a year to go down to City Hall just so that they see a new face. A person that stays engaged enough to find an issue to go and speak about just so that they hear a new voice. A person that is courageous enough to jump into a very dirty pool of what we consider to be a political arena, which we have accepted is dirty and requires money in order to win, and say that I believe that 80% of the people have become apathetic enough to decide that this kind of a voice is the voice that they've been looking for to get engaged.
We're going to take a short break here. Come back with part 2. Thank you, Miss Brunson. Hold tight, we'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. Had to take a break there. We still have Miss Brunson in us. At a lovely home, we still recording Miss Brunson. We have a few more questions. That's very important. Now, I was asking you about, you explained part one of what you would do. I asked you to give me 2 points on what you would do right away as soon as you are elected for District 7 as City Council for the city of Jacksonville, Florida. What would be your second step? Second thing that you would implement or want to see take place in your community?
Town hall meetings right away. Citizen engagement. There are 14 precincts. I think there needs to be a town hall meeting for each of those 14 precincts, and I think that needs to happen within the first 90 days.
Right. And the town hall meeting is going to be the same as that I'm used to, where you bring some elected officials and city workers, department heads. They sit there and talk to the people, but the people never really talk back to them, because most of the time people are given a minute or 2 minutes or maybe 3 minutes to speak. But there's never any solution or plan or anything come out of those town hall meetings.
I agree. I think leadership style puts a buffer between them and the people, so that when the people don't get what they want, then they can say, well, I tried. But I'm not going to be that type of leader. We'll sit down as a community and we'll discuss the issues for that precinct. And I will use the power of the office and whatever resources I have accessible to me to find out who we need to have a conversation with. And then we'll come back and have a town hall meeting so that it's more impactful. It's pointless to gather the people together with all of the demands that it takes just to live your life and enjoy it, whether that's soccer meetings or karate classes or ballroom dancing, whatever it is that you want to spend your time on. So for you to take that time away from pleasing yourself in your own life and then come out and want to be engaged as a citizen, that time should be time that resolutions are found or issues are identified, and then that time needs to be used efficiently. And I agree with you that a repetition of the types of community meetings that we have grown accustomed to over the last 20 years will not lead us to a different response than we've had over the last 20 years. I think we will continue to have decline in the district. I think that quality of life will continue to be impacted negatively. I don't think you can throw money at these types of problems. I think this requires citizen engagement.
Well, let me ask you this. I know in a lot of town hall meetings, you have people, your constituents come up and they want to talk about their individual problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's good and bad. Well, I think it's really more toward bad because there's never talk here. The constituent never talk as a collective.
Yes.
What will you do to change that mentality from
Well,
an individual to a collective?
I think as a leader, I have to remind them that I want to talk about my individual stuff too. I would love for my son to go to Harvard, and I want to talk to everybody in the room that has any idea about how I can get my son to graduate from Harvard University. But that's not going to improve conditions from day to day as far as quality of life is for all 800,000 residents in Jacksonville, and that is my responsibility with the focus on representing the residents in District 7. So now is the time for us to focus as a community, and that's why it's so important that people become engaged. But those opportunities have to be created by the leaders in the community. I think that there has been a polarized shift of who should be responsible for changing the community, and I think that the citizens who have the biggest strain on economically supporting our community are getting the least opportunity to really express what issues would impact them in a positive way, so they are happy about going out and creating the revenue to power the engine. Nobody's saying that we want the engine to fall down. We just want to make sure that we are enjoying our life as much as the people that capitalize on it.
Yes, but don't the constituents have a part to play in that?
Absolutely, that's what the town hall meetings are for.
But
The town hall meeting is an opportunity to become more engaged. I became more engaged because I happened to listen to 30 seconds of a speech by the mayor that said, this is a time for all citizens to do your very best for Jacksonville and be creative and come up with ideas and come up with concepts and start putting those concepts to work. And so at my restaurant on the east side, I did that. I thought about a market that hadn't been on the east side for 50 years. I thought about a product that had not been produced by a legacy resident of the east side for more than 100 years, and I put that to work. I went right to work individually, finding someone that was unemployed, and instead of trying to create a job for them, I'm trying to create an entrepreneurial opportunity for them so that they can create jobs for someone else. This is my answers to the mayor. This was my answer to the mayor's call. And as disengaged and disconnected and apathetic as I have become as one of the cushier Americans in Jacksonville, I believe that other people can become as inspired as I am, and I believe that there's so much more creative capital, and there are so many more creative people than even I am. And if we can just get 1 out of every 100 residents in Jacksonville feeling like I am about improving the condition of the community, something good is going to happen.
Okay, we have something special for you. We can tell you about this part of the show. During the second part of our show, we have something called the hot seat.
Oh,
We're gonna
gosh.
heat the seat up a little bit, and we're gonna get into a dialogue here
Don't I
about
love an
some of
ambush?
some of the things that she have already talked about in the community. So now we really need to get busy. We're gonna have constant dialogue, and I'm gonna be interjecting. She can interject and ask me questions on the flip side. That's where we keep it smart.
Well, let's
The
get busy.
thing I want to talk about, you brought up the mayor. What mayor we talk about first?
Mayor Alvin Brown.
And Evan Brown said that we should be more open, more creative, and as you were saying that.
He in the middle of a speech, in reference to what I cannot say, I apologize. I reiterate that I was disengaged and apathetic, but one of the things that he noted in the speech was that citizens in Jacksonville, he was calling us to action. He called it a citizen's call to action, and he explained that now is the time for us to come forward with our ideas and concepts, because the mayor's office is trying to resolve our issues, but they're limited to their creative capital.
Well, so you saying the mayor is concerned about the condition in the African American community?
I took his speech as sincere enough to become engaged, and here I am today.
Okay, so yes,
I
so
was inspired.
my question to you: do you think the mayor is being a good leader in the African American community?
I believe the mayor is doing the best job he can with the scope of experience that he has.
Right. So, with the experience that they have, okay, good answer, good answer. My concern here is I know, yes, in the African American community, all these different programs have been going on since 1964 to the present here, coming in our community. Yes, and there has been a lot of corruption and greed. But I also find out through the African American Economic Recovery think tank that African American are not educating themselves with all this technology out here, especially in your era. But when you coming up, technology started in the 80s up to the present time here. Why is African American not improving their own condition?
Well, I must confess I have been resistant to learning Windows 8, and I was resistant to participating on Facebook. And there was a time in my life when I thought the metallic strip on the back of a credit card was part of a one world order, and that we were all going to hell. We evolve. Information makes us evolve.
Right, information makes us evolve. I agree with you, but why are we not evolving?
I have.
You
And
keep-
as
well,
I
I'm saying,
stated
but you-
before,
but-
it takes one spark to
It takes
start
one
a
spark.
fire. And I took the
Okay.
words.
So how you gonna take that spark to your people?
I'm
Since you
taking the
brought
spark to
your
the
word,
people
spark,
now.
yeah. You taking the spark to the people, and how you doing that?
I'm talking to Mr. Stanley today, and tomorrow Mr. Stanley will be talking to someone else. And hopefully something that I said today will engage you enough to share that information so that you can engage someone else tomorrow.
Yes, but and once again, I haven't already engaged
Yes,
at
sir.
the African American Economic Recovery think tank.
Yes, sir.
You know, I know for a fact that the knowledge is out there, been out there for a long period of time. I've been out there introducing it to different people around the nation for 10 years. African Americans here are in denial of their condition, first of all. And I'm not talking about the ones in the less fortunate, underserved community. I'm talking about the ones who have went to these schools, historical black school, and
White colleges. They have
and
access to
what I'm
everything.
saying here, we continue to hear this over and over again. As I said before, that someone is taken away from our community what is rightfully ours. But are we going for what is rightfully ours? Are we participating in the process from the top to the bottom? That's my question to you. Are we participating from the top to the bottom?
Based on my last 2 years of exposure in Jacksonville, I can assure you that if we represent 30% of the total population of the city of Jacksonville, we most certainly do not represent 30% of the leadership, business, or social in Jacksonville. The numbers are still out of balance.
I would say that, yeah, what you're saying is true if you're talking about overall.
Yes, sir.
The city overall, but I'm talking about the African American community,
Yes, sir.
which represent 100% of the leadership.
100% of the leadership
The black community.
for the African American community. You're absolutely right.
So, why we did before 1964?
I go back to my original assessment. Disengaged leadership.